Okay. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. Now, this elephant in the room is actually a pink elephant with purple polka dots. Yeah, it's that kind of elephant in the room. It's like really, really strange how we didn't talk about it. But let's get there. Let's start with the top. So I subtitled it The Weeks versus Days. We start off with this Gemara. It says, we mourn during the days of Sfiras Omer, Shekula Mesu Mi Pesach v'ad Atzeres, that they were dying from Pesach until Shavuos. The Kabbalah b'yad Goinim, Shebiyom Lamed Gimel B'Omer Paska Misa, and there's a tradition by the Goinim that on the 33rd day of the Omer, they didn't die. The deaths, the dying ceased was a plague. It's treated as a quasi-holiday. It's the Lag Boimer, the 33rd day of the Omer, this coming Sunday. It's treated as a quasi-holiday because of the fact that they stopped dying on this day. And because of the mourning period, the custom is not to do weddings from Pesach until Lag Boimer, or at that time. There's different opinions. That's how we treat the days of Sfiras Omer. Okay? Now we get to this Gemara. Remember this? We learned this one day last week. Not all of you were here.
What was the last thing with the Gemara?
No.
What was
It
it
brings
from?
the Goinim.
Did the Goinim?
No, it's brought in I think Shulchan Aruch or something. Omer Abaya. This is a Gemara. Mitzvah lemimni yoimei, mitzvah lemimni shvur. Remember this? It's a mitzvah to count the days and a mitzvah to count the weeks. Two separate mitzvahs, or two components of one mitzvah. Rabbanan Devei Rav Ashi, the rabbis of the yeshiva of Rav Ashi's yeshiva, they did like Abaya said. Manu yoimei umani shvui. When they counted the Omer, they counted the days and the weeks. Ameimar, however, this rabbi, his name was Ameimar, mani yoimei v'loy mani shvui. He only counted the days, but not the weeks. Omer, he said in explanation of his opinion, Zeichel lemikdashu. It's just rabbinic now. We don't have the offerings of the barley and the two breads. So the whole counting now is just rabbinic. And he felt that the way the rabbis wanted us to do it is just enough, sufficient to do he counted only the days and not the weeks. Okay? How do you count weeks exactly? It's actually a lot of opinions. How would it be done even? Some would say count regular days, and every seventh day mention a week. That's okay. That's a way to count the weeks. So only on day 7, 14, 21, 48, 35, 42, and 49, you would mention the weeks that passed, because that's when there's a week. The rest of the days, you could just mention the days. Is that what we do? No. What's another way you might have done it? You could have actually counted just the weeks. You could have counted 50 days by counting only weeks. By saying, let's say the 8th day, today is 1 week and 1 day. Not mentioning that it's day 8. The 9th day, you would say, today is 1 week and 2 days. When you get to 14, you say 2 weeks. The next day, you say 2 weeks and 1 day. You never even mention the days. That would be a way to count the weeks, but you could do that every day. Even in the middle, you count the weeks and the days of the week that are there. But the way we do it is, on the 8th day, we say, today is 8 days, which is 1 week and 1 day. So we count both, the days going from 1 to 50, and the weeks, as if it was an independent count. So we say how many weeks and how many days of that week it is. That's part of fulfilling the mitzvah, the obligation to count the weeks. Okay? This is the halacha. Why both? Of course, there's two verses. It says you should count 7 weeks, which is what gives Shavuos the name of the holiday, the weeks. It's you count the weeks and then you celebrate Shavuos. And also the verse says you should count 50 days. Tispedu chamishim yoyim. But we want to know what's the deeper significance. The true mitzvahs we do because Hashem said. We're married, and when you're married, the main thing is who asked you, not what's the reason. However, after that foundation, it's very, very helpful to learn, and the Torah encourages. The Rambam brings it that you try to find deeper insights and messages and lessons and ideas to enhance the emotional feelings and excitements that come from understanding more and more about the reasoning. So what's behind these two things? Why can't we just count 50 days or 7 weeks? We get to the same destination. Either way, why do we have to have these two separate counts getting to the same place? They both count for 49 days, and that's it. What's the deeper significance? So let's go back to that story. Omer Rabbi Akiva sheshneim asar elef zugais talmidim hayuloi. He had 12,000 peers of students, 24,000 students. V'kulam mesu b'perek echad. They all died in one period of time. I spaced specifically here to bring this more dramatic. This is the reason that it's given. Why did all the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva pass during this period of time? This is the way the Gemara puts it. Shaloi nahagu kavod zeh lezeh. They did not give proper respect to one another. That's what it says. The world was desolate after this terrible loss. It was like the greatest yeshiva, the leader of the generation, right? The greatest rabbi, all the students. The world was desolate. The light Torah could have a nice malls and amusement parks, but it's considered empty if you don't have Torah going on. Until Rabbi Akiva started again the yeshiva in the south. Bishana Lahem, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua. They were like the bottleneck in this point in Jewish history that saved Torah, and it started again from the next generation. Rabbi Shimon here is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, by the way. We might have a class about his life one day. Be'ez Hashem, like we did Rabbi Akiva last week. You might do Rabbi Shimon. Are big Jews. Maybe Wednesday, if Shlomi reminds me. Okay, yes. So now we get to the elephant in the room. Okay, this is what the Gemara just presents. Shaloi nagu kavod zeh lezeh. They did not give respect to each other. You ready? Here's the elephant in the room. What's the big elephant here? Told you it's pink.
Where's the polka dots?
Oh, that was missing. I didn't have time to paint it. It's a pretty good elephant. As you said, it's so big. You almost missed it. What's the elephant in the room? Rabbi Akiva Omer, v'hafta l'reyacha kamoicha, zeh klal gadol b'Torah. Ask any little kid in Crown Heights, what did Rabbi Akiva say? He'll tell you, you have to love your fellow like yourself. That's what he's famous for. How could his very own students, who the Torah calls students of Rabbi Akiva, not like I say, oh, they went to his class, his school, so they're students of Rabbi Akiva. No, they're called that way in the Talmud. That means they really, really receive. They're worthy of the title being called a disciple of Rabbi Akiva. That's a high level. They were called, they're termed this thus by the Gemara. And yet, in Rabbi Akiva's most famous teaching, this is the great principle of the Torah. This is where they're deficient in, to the point where they actually had to be killed. They got so severely. They must have been severely deficient in it. Obviously, it's relative to their high level and the high expectations and standards that they're treated from above always because of the spiritual level that they have and the access to the great Torah that they had and the great inspiration they had. So they were judged more strictly. But how could they mess up in this area, which this is Rabbi Akiva's most famous teaching? And he didn't just teach this. He said this is the great principle of the Torah. How could they go and sour in this very area? This is what I was calling the elephant in the room. What do you want to share, Ozzy?
Maybe it only got popular later on.
So actually, some people say, ever says a big dechek to say that oh, so he saw this and then he started to preach this after he saw what happened. That would fit very nicely, and it is suggested by some rabbis. But it's a little bit hard to say he figured out after this whole story. He's learning for 24 years, and then he decided that Rav Lecha Kamecha is important. Okay, it's a little bit.
It seems like it's not a benefit to be on a lower level.
Sometimes, but that's for another discussion. So to explain this, questions clear before I go on? Yosef, Shlomo, you're with me? David, you understand? It's such a strange problem. How could this be? How could this happen to Rabbi Akiva students of all people? If you had to pick one group of people that would probably be nice to each other, you would think it's Rabbi Akiva students. And yet they're the ones who must have messed up so bad in this that they got to punish the worst than we know of any group for this specific problem. Something must be said to explain this. Okay. So we want to go into to discuss a little deeper the difference between love versus respect. It's two different concepts. It says he taught love your fellow like yourself, if you paid attention. And why does it say that blames the death? They didn't respect each other. It's two different concepts. And let's see how they work. Love or respect first. Respect and love, right? Kavod and Ava. Love is how you are one, what you have in common, how you're close. Respect kicks in to the part of you that is different, that is distant. There's a part of you that's not me. That's where respect kicks in. I have to respect you. I don't have the part that's similar to you, to me, in you. That's the part I love. That's because we are one. It's similar to me. You're like me. You're one with me in this respect. It's easier to love that. Respect is harder, right? It's a big problem a lot of times in families. You love each other. Why? Because you're one family. But could you respect the fact that they have different, they might be going on about things different than you would like because of who they are? There's a famous, terrible anecdote about a woman's with the therapist, and she's sharing that she has all this trauma because her mother forced her to do piano lessons. She hated piano, and she resented it, and she was so bitter because her mother forced her week after week to go to piano lessons. And the therapist said, and what did you want to do? Well, I hated piano. I wanted to do ballet all my life. I wanted to do ballet. My mother forced me to do piano. She ignored my needs, and she made me do piano and didn't let me do ballet. And I wanted to. Okay. So then the therapist says, "Hope you're not going to make the same mistake with your daughter." Oh, no way. My daughter's going to be doing ballet whether she likes it or not. Okay. Okay. So, by the way, this is a really good story to remember because you are guaranteed you'll find yourself doing this one day with your children. Your default, you're going to for sure catch yourself doing this type of thing in some way. You're always going to be trying to, whatever you grew up with, you could either try to copy it or or the other way, but it's not always healthy. So you see, I love my child. I'm going to make sure, right? But it has to be what I want. That's not respecting.
So what do we do?
Train yourself to think before you speak, to pause before you make decisions, right? Discuss with people, humble yourself to discuss with others and have mentors and have guidance, and in general, try to let Torah values guide you and become and try to learn as much Torah values as you could, which is one of the main subjects we're secretly learning in yeshiva all the time. You think you're learning a bunch of subjects, but every time we have a class or discussion, what you're really also getting is how Torah looks at everything. And that's an unofficial subject that you're learning, all the time if you learn Torah properly, and you humble yourself again to absorb it, not try to. Of course, you have to ask questions properly to understand things, but you're opening yourself to be able to see how Torah wants you to look at the world and everything in it. Okay. Anyway, you see the difference in love and respect? Love is what we have in common. We're one family. I love you, but do I respect you that you might be different? That's a whole other level. Doesn't always go together. Love is how we are one. Respect is there's a part of us that's not one. And I have to respect you for who you are. Is there room for individual expression in Judaism? Absolutely. We're not cookie cutters, factories. Even though we have one Shulchan Aruch, we have a good Dr. Seuss. Who knows how to read Dr. Seuss?
I do. Today you are you. That is truer than true. There was no one alive who was human than you.
Good. Remember that. Even though we have one Shulchan Aruch, everyone has unique strengths and weaknesses, soul attributes, life experiences, expectations. Everyone has their own journey, their own areas of emphasis. Right? We all have we have a different journey. We have a different path. And even though there's one Shulchan Aruch, there's room for everybody to be serving Hashem a little differently. One person one year is davening is easier, and learning this subject is easier than for another person. And other people shine in Mifsayim, and their Kabbalah soil is in Farbrengens, and other person's Kabbalah soil is in keeping the Seder and going to sleep, waking up. Everyone has their areas where they have to, they're just trying to get it under control. For them, that's avodah. But for someone else who's good at that, avodah in that area would be expressed on a much higher level, with much higher expectations. Within the framework of one Shulchan Aruch and one schedule and so on for a Jew, there's so much differences actually on an individual basis for everybody. Everyone serves Hashem a little differently than their neighbor. This is how Hashem made it. What I need to work on is not what you need to work on. For me, what's Mitzrayim, what's going to be freedom, is for someone else. This is Mitzrayim. He has to move on from that. So here's what happened. Listen what happened to the students of Rabbi Akiva. Precisely because they internalized the teacher's message about love so well. Love is how we're the same. They struggled with respecting each other. Differences and applying and interpreting the individual path is because they really, really were disciples of Rabbi Akiva. They didn't just say the words. They had to convert their friend to serve God their way, the way they understood and felt was right. They loved them. How could they not? You have to do ballet or else. Right? They felt that they had to do the way they thought was right. They had to impose it because they loved the other one. Remember, love is how we're the same. So Rabbi Akiva taught love is the whole Torah. And they were deficient. They took it to such an extreme that they struggle, again, relative to their level, with respecting that other people could emphasize a little different than them, and they could do it a little. They could have, for them, Could be different areas where they have to work on. Everyone with me? This also explains another crazy detail in the story of Rabbi Akiva with his wife Rachel. Remember that? How could Rabbi Akiva just leave his wife for another 12 years that time? He came in, he overheard her speaking, and he left. Why? Didn't he love her? Why did he just leave like that? It seems outrageous and extreme. The answer is, if he only loved her, I want everyone to hear this, so if you don't mind. Everyone ready?
Water, Rabbi? Water?
Yeah, I want to continue the class. I just want everyone to settle in. Are we ready? Okay. If he only loved her, he would definitely want to stay close with her. That's what love is, how you're connected, how you're close. But he also respected her, Rabbi Akiva. And he did what she wanted, regardless of what he wanted. He was expecting, it was about what she wanted. She could be, it's not only love, he had that healthy balance. If you only do what love is what you want, and it's all about being close and one. But you have to also acknowledge that there's the part of us that is not one, and it's different. That's where respect kicks in, and that's what he was expressing in that extreme part of the story.
So how come he couldn't give that over to his students?
Oh, so that's what they miss, because it doesn't contradict that principle. They internalized the love too much, and they had a hard time because they so strongly they couldn't, because they were something that Rebbe Kiva, they were deficient in respect. Meaning because they absorbed that lesson of the importance of love. They said, if I didn't learn that, I would leave you alone. But I gotta get you to serve God exactly how I feel is right. I have to, out of love for you. They couldn't get wrap the brain around the possibility that you could also have to respect that you might be serving God a little differently. And out of their love, they felt they had to compel each other to serve God the way they understood their teacher's words, how it applied to them.